Hello, everybody. I guess it's my turn to do a list. So I'm going to do, I was going to call it last pictures and last words. Some of them's not going to be last pictures of the ones I'm going to do. I don't have final pictures of everybody, but we're going to do final words of killers.
Interesting.
And some will be pictures too.
Are these death pictures or their last photo?
Last photo.
Last known photo.
Yeah, last known photos. So I'll have all the last known photos of everybody in there. So let's get started.
Exciting.
Hello, I'm Brent, and this is Strange Embers. First one I'm going to start with is Velma Barfield.
Velma Barfield. I'm not familiar with her, I don't think.
Velma Barfield, convicted of multiple murders in the 1970s.
Okay.
She was born in 1932 in North Carolina and became known as the Death Row Granny.
Death Row Granny.
Her crimes involved poisoning people close to her, including her husband and other relatives, by using arsenic. She was arrested in 1978 after the suspicious death of her boyfriend, Stuart Taylor, led to an investigation. During questioning, Barfield confessed to poisoning several people, including her mother and previous employers.
So she poisoned some of her employers from work?
That's what she said.
Well.
She was convicted of Taylor's murder and sentenced to death. She was executed by lethal injection in 1984, becoming the first woman to be executed in the U.S. after the resumption of the death penalty in 1976.
Wow.
Her last words were, quote, "I know that everybody has gone through a lot of pain, all the families connected, and I'm sorry. And I want to thank everybody who have been supporting me all these 6 years," end quote.
It's almost like I would like to thank the Academy.
Yeah. It's been a good run.
Mm-hmm.
Next on the list, John William Rook was convicted of the 1978 abduction, rape, and murder of 23-year-old Patty Jo Ferris in North Carolina. Rook, who had a history of violent behavior, kidnapped Ferris, sexually assaulted her, then shot her multiple times. Leaving her body in a wooded area, he was arrested shortly after the crime and later convicted of first-degree murder, receiving the death sentence. His execution was by lethal injection in 1986, making him one of the first people executed in North Carolina after the reinstatement of the death penalty as well.
Okay. So was the death penalty taken away through the entire United States and then reinstated?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. It was gone for 20 years. I think if I remember right, it was 1956 when it went away. It came back in 76.
Okay.
His last words were, quote, "Freedom, freedom at last. Man, it's been a real good one," end quote.
Thank God Almighty, freedom at last.
Next on the list is Sylvester Lewis Adams. On November 13th, 1983, Sylvester and his accomplice, Donnie McNabb, attempted to rob a gas station where 34-year-old Mary Lou O'Neill was working. During the robbery, O'Neill was shot and killed. The two men were quickly apprehended, and Adams later convicted based on eyewitness testimonies and physical evidence linking him to the crime. Adams was convicted of capital murder in 1984. He was executed by lethal injection on August the 18th, 1995. Last words were, quote, "I'm the happiest man in the world. I'm not afraid to die. I'm not crazy. I'm going to be reaching that White House tonight," end quote. Next on the list, Jimmy L. Glass. He was convicted of a double murder during a burglary in Louisiana in 1982. Glass and an accomplice, Jimmy Wingo, escaped from jail and broke into a home where they killed an elderly couple, Newton and Earlene Brown, by shooting them in their sleep. Glass was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. His case became widely known due to his appeal, in which he challenged the execution by electrocution, arguing that it was constituted cruel and unusual punishment. The United States Supreme Court ultimately rejected his appeal, upholding the electrocution as a legal method of execution. Glass was executed in Louisiana's electric chair on June the 12th, 1987. Last words were, quote, "Yeah, I think I'd rather be fishing," end quote.
My gosh. That kills me when people are like, hey, I know I murdered these two elderly folks in their house, or, kids or women or whatever, whoever they murdered, and say, oh, they can't execute me that way. It's cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah, there's some of them that, I can't remember, I wouldn't say last words, but there's some of them that a lot of their arguments were stuff like that. I mean, that's like they'd be in prison for raping, dismembering, whatever else, and then they're like, you didn't give me a blanket. It's cruel and unusual punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a break.
Exactly.
Next on the list, Arthur Gary Bishop. He was a serial killer and child molester who murdered 5 young boys in Utah between 1979 and 1983. Bishop, who grew up in a strict Mormon household, began his criminal activities with theft and embezzlement before escalating to child sexual abuse and murder. He lured his victims, ranging from ages 4 to 13, by pretending to be friendly and offering gifts, then sexually assaulting and killing them. His method of murder included drowning, strangulation, and bludgeoning. He was arrested in 1983 after police linked him to a missing boy. During interrogation, he confessed to all 5 murders and led authorities to the bodies. Bishop showed no remorse and admitted that his sexual urges drove him to kill. In 1984, he was convicted of multiple counts of murder and sentenced to death. He was executed by lethal injection in 1988. Last words, quote, "I want to offer again my most profound and heartfelt apologies to my victims' families. I'm truly sorry. I've tried my best to empathize with their grief and devastation, and I hope that they come to know of my concerns and prayers for them." End quote.
You almost wonder if it's really, I don't think they have the ability to really empathize or...
Some of these I put on the list with the quotes like that. I'm not going to say that the quotes were just these like wild, outlandish, funny or whatever else, but some of them with the ones like this. When I made this list, I made this list originally from just quotes. Mm-hmm. That's it. And then I wanted everybody to know who they are. What were their crimes, whatever else. Because if you're going to know the quote, know a little bit about what their crimes are so that you can kind of have more of a headspace of how outlandish some of the quotes are.
Yeah.
But just like that one, it's...
I don't know if I was a victim's family member, if that would give you any type of peace or... I mean, nothing's going to bring that person back, but I don't know. Next
on the list? Mm-hmm. Got to have at least one famous one on this list for everybody to know. So let's do Ted Bundy. He was a serial killer who terrorized the United States in the 1970s. He was convicted of murdering at least 30 young women, though the actual number of victims is believed to be much higher. Bundy's crimes were particularly disturbing due to his charming and manipulative personality, which he used to lure his victims. Bundy would often pretend to be injured using a fake cast or crutches to appear vulnerable. Once he gained a woman's trust, he would abduct her, take her to a secluded location, sexually assault her, and then kill her, usually through strangulation or bludgeoning. He also engaged in necrophilia and kept trophies from his victims. January 1978, after escaping from prison twice, Bundy committed the most brutal attack at the Chi Omega sorority house.
Oh, yeah, that was in
in
Florida.
Florida. Killed 2 women and severely injured 2 others. Then he kidnapped and murdered 12-year-old Kimberly Lynch. Bundy was arrested in 1978 after a routine traffic stop in Florida. He acted as his own attorney during the trial, but the overwhelming evidence, including bite mark analysis, led to his conviction. He was sentenced to death for multiple murders. Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair January the 24th, 1989 in Florida. Last words, quote, "I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends," end quote.
And that was it.
That was it.
Yeah, he had a girlfriend he lived with, a child he was...
Raising her child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And got married again in prison. I'm pretty sure.
Did he? I can't remember.
I think
There's so many of them that did. But
yeah.
Next on the list, G.W. Green. He was a convicted murderer who was executed by lethal injection November 11th, 1991. Before his execution, he reportedly echoed the infamous last words of Gary Gilmore, who was the first person executed in the United States after the reinstatement of the death penalty in 1976. Green's last words, quote, "Lock and load, let's do it, man," end quote. They say that he mimicked Gilmore's last words, which Gilmore's last words were, quote, "Let's do it," end quote, while he was standing in front of the firing squad. Gilmore was killed by firing squad.
Okay.
He said, "Let's do it." That's all he said before
He didn't say lock and load.
No. But what's interesting about that, there's a man named Dan Whedon.
Dan the Man Whedon.
He was a marketing executive for a shoe company.
Mm-hmm.
And he heard of Gary Gilmore being executed and what his last words were.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that it was so remarkable for somebody to be standing in front of a firing squad with that kind of pressure,
mm-hmm.
and then just have just the "let's do it," like no fear, whatever kind of attitude. And he liked it, and he wanted to use it for the slogan.
For let's do it?
But he couldn't say "let's do it." It just wouldn't be the same. So, as I've known still to today, because of what Gary Gilmore said when he was being executed, mm-hmm. Dan made Nike's slogan.
Wow, that's interesting.
That slogan came from Gary Gilmore's execution.
Wow, that is interesting.
Next on the list, Johnny Frank Garrett. He was a man convicted of the 1981 murder of Sister...
Of a nun?
Of Sister Tadia Benz, a 76-year-old Catholic nun in Amarillo, Texas. The case gained significant attention because Garrett was a teenager at the time of the crime and was sentenced to death despite maintaining his innocence throughout the trial and the conviction. Sister Benz was a nun working at a local convent when she was found raped and murdered in her apartment in Amarillo in October of 1981. Garrett, who was 17 years old at the time, was arrested after a police investigation that included a confession from him, although the validity of his confession was highly disputed. During the trial, Garrett was convicted of capital murder, largely based on the confession he later claimed was coerced by police. Many believed that his confession was obtained through intimidation and pressure, as Garrett had a history of intellectual disabilities and had previously been diagnosed with a learning disorder. There were also concerns about the lack of physical evidence linking him to the crime. Despite these concerns, Garrett was convicted and sentenced to death in 1982.
I mean, that has happened in the past where...
Oh, it's happened a bunch.
Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of cases, too, where teenage boys rape and kill elderly women.
Mm-hmm. There are.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett spent 15 years on death row. In 1992, after years of appeals continued, Through his claims of innocence, Garrett was executed by lethal injection on February the 11th of 1992. At the time of his execution, he maintained his innocence, stating that he had been wrongfully convicted and was the victim of police misconduct. In the years following Garrett's execution, further investigations and DNA testing raised doubts about his guilt. Some experts believe he may have been wrongfully executed, as later DNA evidence did not conclusively link him to the crime.
Oh, wow.
The case remains controversial, and some advocating for exoneration, while others continue to argue that Garrett was guilty. His case is often cited in discussions about the flaws and risk of the death penalty and wrongful convictions. His last words were, quote, "I'd like to thank my family for loving me and taking care of me, and the rest of the world can kiss my ass." End quote.
There's a lot with that type of last words as well.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of them. That's their last words. Mm-hmm. Next on the list. Edward Ellis was found guilty of the brutal murder of Teresa Fusco. She was 21 years old at the time. He raped and murdered her after abducting her from a convenience store. The case was particularly heinous because Ellis had a prior criminal record and had been involved in violent crimes before. Ellis maintained his innocence during the trial and throughout his time on death row. However, his conviction was upheld, and despite his appeals, he was executed by lethal injection on March the 3rd, 1992. His last words were, quote, "I just want everybody to know that I think the prosecutor and Bill Scott are some sorry SOBs," end quote.
Nice.
Bill Scott was a fellow inmate who testified against him as well.
Oh.
Next on the list, Robert Alton Harris. He was a murderer executed in California in 1992 for the 1978 murders of two teenage boys. On July the 5th, 1978, Harris and his younger brother Daniel abducted 16-year-old John Mieski and Michael Baker in San Diego. They forced the boys into a remote area where they were both shot and killed. Following the murders, the brothers robbed a bank using the victim's car. They were apprehended less than an hour later. Notably, Officer Stephen Baker, who arrested them, was unaware at the time that his son Michael was among one of the victims.
Oh.
Harris was convicted of multiple charges, including first-degree murder with special circumstances, kidnapping, and a bank robbery. He was sentenced to death on March 6, 1979. Harris was executed by gas chamber in San Quentin State Prison on April the 21st, 1992. That marked California's first execution since 1967.
Oh, wow. He probably would not have been apprehended alive if the police officer would have known.
Probably not. Or just never found.
Or never found.
Still on the look for him. Mm-hmm. Ain't found him yet. We're still looking.
Yep.
Harris's last words were, quote, "You can be a king or a street sweeper, but everybody dances with the Grim Reaper," end quote. That phrase was inspired by the film Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Really?
Yep. Last but not least, Roger Keith Coleman was convicted of rape and murder of his sister-in-law, Wanda McCoy, in rural Virginia on March the 10th, 1981. Wanda McCoy was found raped and murdered at her home in Grundy, Virginia. She had been brutally assaulted, and her body was discovered by her family. Coleman was quickly arrested based on circumstantial evidence, including a hair sample that matched his DNA. However, his defense argued that the evidence was not conclusive and that he was being framed.
Since he could be present in the home at any time, being his brother's home.
Despite ongoing appeals and a push for DNA testing, Coleman was executed by lethal injection May the 20th, 1992 in Virginia. His last words were, quote, "An innocent man is going to be murdered tonight. When my innocence is proven, I hope America will realize that the injustice of the death penalty, as all other civilized countries have. My last words are to the woman I love. Love is eternal. My love for you will last forever. I love you, Sharon. End quote. After his execution, further DNA testing concluded in the late 1990s revealed that the evidence at the crime scene did not match Roger Coleman's DNA.
Oh, wow.
The exoneration raised doubts about the fairness of the trial and the reliability of forensic evidence used to convict him. And that's it. That's all for this list. Y'all let me know in the comments. Do y'all like the final words list? Do y'all want more of the final words list? Do y'all want just final words? Or do y'all like having a little synopsis of why they're there?
I think it would be a good addition, a nice variety.
We'll see. I think we're going to continue the 50-state hunt soon.
Utah.
Yep, Utah will be the next one. Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't think so.
Remember to like, subscribe, hit the button, hit the bell, hit the whatever you hit. All the stuff. It helps. It helps the algorithm. It helps us keep going. Anything you want to say?
I think that's it. Nice to be back with you and see you next time.
Well, to everybody out there, good morning, good afternoon, good day,
Good evening.
and good night.